Hello, and welcome to the Second Call Defense podcast. I'm Dean Reek, and I'm joined by Sean Maloney, firearms attorney and co-founder of Second Call Defense. Hi, Sean.
Hey, Dean. Thanks for having me again.
Well, Sean, we're into summer. The weather's great. People are traveling, and that means people traveling with firearms and being pulled over. Now, Sean, I kid you because sometimes, allegedly, you might be a little bit of a leadfoot and you've been pulled over a number of times, and you're kind of an expert on traffic stops. So I just want to pick your brain and learn about the right way to handle a traffic stop. So if I'm driving down the street and I see those lights flashing in my rear view mirror, what do I do?
Well, I've been giving this advice for years, even before Second Call Defense was even in existence, because people always were confused by their rights and their duties. But the advice I give is if you're pulled over while carrying a concealed handgun especially, you should remember to do the following. I always say pull over off the road as far as you possibly can to protect the officer, because if traffic stops and semi-tractor trailers blown by are dangerous, and the police officer is going to notice that you took the extra effort to make sure that for their safety, and that may pay dividends down the road. And then before the officer approaches, I want you to roll down your windows, both windows on both sides, because you never know where they're going to approach. If it's nighttime, I want you to turn the dome light on, and I want you to place your hands in plain view on the steering wheel. So make sure if it's dark outside, turn your lights on, and your hands are always on the steering wheel. And then most importantly, please don't search for your license, your insurance card, or your registration, because you can imagine what that looks like from a police officer sitting in their car, running your plate, and all of a sudden your head's going down below the line of vision. It looks like you're looking for something in the floor or in the glove compartment. They don't know what you're doing. They don't know if you're hiding something or if you're pulling a gun out or what's going on. So it's always best to just sit there calmly with the hands on the steering wheel and wait for the police officer to approach.
Well, and I know a lot of people get a little worked up, the heart rate goes up a little bit. We can't help it, even though we generally think of cops as the good guys. It's a bit stressful when you get pulled over because you're wondering, well, what did I do? Do they think that I'm some criminal? What's going to happen? And maybe, Sean, just take a moment, take a deep breath and relax and try not to be all worked up when the officer comes up, right? Because if you're just a little bit more relaxed, maybe the whole encounter will be a bit more relaxed.
That's great advice, Dean, because not everybody gets pulled over on a regular basis, and you're not used to that. You're nervous. You don't know what's going on. You've never been pulled over before. It's the police. You're not sure what you're being pulled over, and there's a number of things that are going through your mind. And so take some deep breaths, some four-square breathing if you know how to do it. Relax and calmly and politely speak to the police officer.
Now, you mentioned four-square breathing there. What we mean by that is it's just this exercise where you breathe in really slow for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and then just relax for 4 seconds. And repeat that several times. It actually does work. I mean, it's not going to make you like hyper relaxed, like you've taken downers or something, but it's just going to take the edge off a little bit and maybe put you in a better frame of mind so that you're not going to be acting all squirrely and strange with the officer, because remember, they don't know who you are and they're going to be judging the way you act. And if you're acting all worked up, they're going to wonder why.
Exactly. You want to try to calm yourself down. You want to try to lessen the effect of the adrenaline that's hitting your system because you're nervous. And certainly you don't want to be tweaking out to the point where the officer is wondering what you're taking. That's kind of a worst case scenario, but you got to remember to relax. Your adrenaline's going. It's a tense situation, and breathe and relax and remain as calm as you possibly can. Now, it's easy for me to say, but it's something you should practice doing, and certainly make sure that you remember the advice that we're giving you right now. Pull off the road as far as you possibly can, turn the dome light on, hands on the steering wheel, and make sure that you're not making any further movements in the vehicle until the police officer gets there, and then promptly and politely interact with the police officer.
Now, I know this might sound a little strange, Sean, but it actually might help to practice this a little bit. I know that I've done that. When I get a new car, I make sure that I know where everything is. Where are my flashers? Where's the dome light and how to turn it on? When I got my recent car, I wasn't sure how to get the dome light on. So I had to figure that out because there wasn't a button. You have to actually push on the light itself. Just practice all this, getting both windows down, the dome light. I always put the flashers on, and I try to be completely ready before they even come up to the car. So you might just want to practice that, know where everything is, and visually sort of map it out. What are you going to do before that officer actually walks up to the car? And as you mentioned, officers sometimes come up on the driver's side, but sometimes they come up on the passenger side, especially if it's a busy highway. So you want to practice and sort of mentally think that through. For self-defense, people will often imagine, well, what happens if somebody comes in my back door? What happens if somebody breaks into my garage or whatever? Well, this is just one more thing that you can mentally train for, right?
You're correct, Dean, and it's a good idea to practice. And advice that I've given my kids and I've given everybody else that I know is put your license, your registration, and your insurance card in an envelope and put it above your visor. That way, everything is right there that you need in one envelope. And I've been doing this for years. After I make contact, can I see your license registration? Sure, officer. I reach over my head, grab the envelope, and give him the items he's asked for. It's important to realize that a police officer has the right for their safety to search anywhere you're going to go. So if you're going to say, "Well, officer, I got to get in the glove compartment. That's where my registration is." If they want to, for their safety, they can do a search of that. And so we want to make sure that it's easy, it's quick. You don't have to do anything more, especially if you have in your armrest, you're also carrying your gun in your armrest. Then you want to make sure that you inform them that that's where the firearm is. And other advice that we have when the police officer gets to your window and makes contact with you, and I know the state of Ohio, you don't have to disclose or inform the police officer that you have a firearm unless he or she asks. But on a regular basis, that's still the first words out of my mouth. Officer, I'm a concealed carry holder, and I have it with me. And they appreciate that. And if you want to make a friend on the side of the road, in my view, it's the best way to do it. And I argue with people about their constitutional rights, not to have to do that. But you know what? I respect police officers, the job that they're doing, and I want to make it easy for them. And it helps my interaction go that much better with them. So again, remain calm, don't be argumentative, and answer the questions.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, Sean. I know some people who they just don't like cops. And that's their right to have their opinion. I don't feel that way, but regardless of how you feel, I think it's just a practical thing. If you get pulled over, is that really the way that you want to spend your day? Arguing with that officer, disrespecting them, making it more likely that you're going to get a ticket or more likely that you're going to be arrested. What's your priority? Is your priority to get about your day and do what you want to do? Or do you want to have a confrontation with that officer? That's kind of a personality thing. But for me, I'd rather just get it over with, have it go smoothly, and be on my way.
Dean, there's a lot of wisdom in everything you say. And I always remind people that you never know what that police officer just had happen 10 minutes ago. They might have been wrestling on the ground, saving their life, keeping somebody from getting their gun. They could have just saved someone from a fire. They might have just been in an automobile accident and saw, and had 3 or 4 dead bodies to deal with. So you don't know what they're doing. So there's no sense in making things more difficult for yourself. And I've represented many people for traffic violations, for reckless operation. And as an attorney, there's nothing worse for me to go to the prosecutor, cut a deal, and we go to the police officer to see if they agree it, and they say, you know what, your client was a real idiot and treated me like a piece of crap. I'm not doing anything. So that's something you have to remember down the road. When you get to court, if you're anything but a perfect lady or gentleman, you're not going to get the breaks that somebody that was polite is going to get, believe it or not.
There's a thing that a lot of cities do. It's called the Police Citizens Academy or Citizens Police Academy, something like that. Most cities will do that. And I went through the one locally, and they'll show you like over 10 weeks. And this is a completely free program. You apply for it. They'll show you what they do and why. And traffic stops are one of the things that they do. And Sean, you were saying that you never know what a police officer's been through. That was actually part of the training. They had us, these were sort of mock situations. They had us handle a situation where a guy was suicidal and he aimed his a gun at a police officer. People got shot, again, in this sort of pretend situation, and it's very stressful. And then immediately you go to a traffic stop situation where there's nothing wrong, no crimes been committed or whatever, and they just do that to show you how that changes your mindset as an officer. And so, they're very aware of that, and I recommend everybody, if you have an opportunity, go through one of those citizen police academies so you can learn about what police officers do and all the stresses that they face.
And I know that I think every county sheriff in the state of Ohio has that officer on patrol program or citizens on patrol, and that's a great idea because then you get some insight in dealing with law enforcement, some insight what's going to happen on the road, and it educates you. To a lot of different things you don't think about that will make sense as you go forward, and you think about the fact that there's some people that I tell them, I said, don't touch or don't attempt to touch your handgun unless you're specifically told to do so. And they're probably not going to do that because I have some people that think it's a good idea to deholster and put the gun in the glove compartment. Of course, it's a violation of the law, and people sometimes don't realize that. But you have to understand is what's that look like to the officer approaching on the passenger side that you don't see. And things like that can have serious consequences, but you're absolutely right. You don't know what that police officer just went through. They don't get to take 2 hours off to decompress after their last incident. They get a call and they're gone again down the road, and that could be you getting pulled over.
Yeah, just so, don't act squirrely. Don't act like an idiot. I know that the people who really need that advice, they're not going to realize they need that advice, but really just relax. The deep breathing is a good idea. Just chill out, sit there, do what the officer says. If you have an argument about, what happens or you think your rights have been violated, take it up later, because you can always make a complaint to a police department. Handling that on the side of the road and getting into a debate, you're never going to win that debate. You're never going to win that debate.
I tell people that all the time. The time to argue about your rights and the facts of the case is not on the side of the road at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's never going to end well. And again, when you get into the preliminary hearing or the arraignment, and you've been an idiot, they're going to remember that. So you're absolutely right. You're not going to gain anything by arguing on the side of the road. Some people just can't help themselves, though. I've learned that over the years. No matter how many times you try to tell them that, they just can't.
So now, Sean, you mentioned earlier about having your license and registration, all that, like all together. You said you put it in an envelope. What I do, and this comes from the same advice that you were giving in a lecture you did up my way, I just keep it all in my wallet. And so I have my license, my carry license, my registration, and my insurance card. It's all together in a little compartment in my wallet, and I just pull a little tab and all four of them come out. So I can very easily, like within 10 seconds, have that in my hand with my hand on the wheel at 10 and 2, ready to go. And I don't have to look around the car or do anything else. I used to keep things in different spots. Like the license would be in my wallet, registration might be in the glove box, and I would have to assemble all of that. It just really helps to have it all together and ready.
Exactly. We're doing much the same thing. And while you're talking about a wallet, if you keep all your information in the wallet, and my wallet is kept on the right side of my body, and that's also where my holster is. And can I see your license and registration? I said, officer, it's in my wallet on the right side of my body, and that's where my firearm is in a holster. And they'll thank me for telling them that. And officers are watching what I'm doing, and I grab my wallet and I show it to them. But the more communication you have with police, the better off everything's going to be, and less accidents are going to happen.
Yeah, well, no, I carry my wallet in my left back pocket, so it's a little easier to get to. But I'll do the same thing. If an officer would pull me over and say, like last time I got pulled over, I was just speeding a little bit, didn't get a ticket, just a warning. First thing the officer says when he walks up to the car is, sir, do you have your gun with you tonight? Because he had run my plate. He knew that I had a license. And I said, yes, sir, it's in a holster on my right hip. So I told him what I had and where it was, and he said, that's fine. And then he proceeded to lecture me about the speeding. The gun never came up again. So, they kind of know, you're sending signals. How are you acting? Do you have your hands on the wheel? Do you have your license ready to go? Do you tell them about the gun? They can kind of get a sense for how that interaction is going to go from what you say and what you do. Just keep your cool, show a little bit of respect, and the whole thing should go just fine. And in my case, I didn't even get a ticket.
That's great advice for everybody because they're going to be judging you in the first few words out of your mouth. So if you're combative, why'd you pull me over? I don't have time for this. It's the last thing you want to do in a situation like this. And by you informing the police officer that you have your firearm and where it is, well, you're a good guy. They already think with the concealed carry permit, you're a member of the most law-abiding segment of society, bar none. And now you've shown that because you've been polite. You've given the officer all the information they need, maybe more than they needed, but that's a great way to start the interaction with the police officer.
So, Sean, let's just talk about, how to carry your gun in the car. Now, I'm pretty traditional. I have a holster on my right hip. Admittedly, when I'm, buckled in, it's hard to get to. And I understand when people say that, they get in their car and they want to unholster or they want to take that holster off, put it in the seat, or put it somewhere else because it can be kind of uncomfortable. What's your advice for that? I mean, is it a good idea to drive with the gun on a seat or under your seat or somewhere off of your body?
I would always advise anybody who's carrying a firearm on their body or off the body, it has to be secured on your seat or trying to hide it underneath your floor is just a recipe for disaster. If you're fishing around for your firearm and the first thing you grab is the trigger. Uh, and I used to always carry mine on my right hip, but if I go in a car for more than 2 hours, my back starts to hurt and my hip starts to hurt. So I started taking it off, and I have a center armrest where I've secured the same holster that I wear on my body inside the armrest, so I can safely and securely store my firearm in the armrest. Again, it's secured and it's not going to be flying around. I know a number of people also that have purchased the gun magnets and had their firearm secured to the side of a panel in the car for safety purposes. But it's great advice to do and not do what you said by putting on the seat. Put on the brakes, the thing's flying it's a projectile, and who knows if it's going to go off. And then try to get your firearm by fishing under the seat and grabbing the trigger guard. So if you can handle it, I always said, carrying on your body, you know where it is all the time. If you get out, you don't have to try to reholster. The least contact you have with your firearm on or about your body, the safer you're going to be. And I always try to use that as a rule for myself. So if you can, keep it in a holster, keep it secured. But if not, make sure if you not have it on your body, that wherever you have it in the automobile is stored securely and safely.
I would suggest even if you have it off of your body, like if you're putting it in a console or glove box or whatever, also have it in a holster there
Has to be.
because you got to cover that trigger guard. Having a loose gun anywhere is a bad idea because we all make mistakes. It doesn't take much for your finger to get into that trigger guard and accidentally pull the trigger.
Absolutely, and that's why I have a Kydex holster secured in my armrest compartment, and and even if I had a magnet, my gun would still be in a holster. It'd be in a holster with a trigger guard covered because I agree with you. Especially if you need to grab that firearm quickly, a lot of people you don't have the rote practice over and over again and a muscle memory of drawing a firearm from your holster like you do when you practice, rather than reaching down and grabbing the firearm off a magnet. With an exposed trigger guard, your hands on it, and next thing you know, your fingers on the trigger, and then the nightmare begins.
Well, that's all really good advice for how to handle a traffic stop. Well, Sean, that's all for now. And I would like to say to everyone listening, if you're not a member of Second Call Defense, go to secondcalldefense.org and sign up for complete self-defense legal protection. Sean, is there anything you want to say about that?
Make sure that you take your time and you sign up. I don't want to be a the sky is falling person, but everything from negligent discharge to stolen firearms to brandishing to using a knife, pepper spray or whatever, we cover it and we protect you. And the last thing you want to do is, if you're arrested for using your firearm or any weapon in self-defense, even though you are 100% sure that you did the right thing, you can still be arrested. Who are you going to call? Do you have an attorney's phone number handy? Get your second call defense card, call the emergency hotline, and let us take care of you from there forward.
Good advice, Sean. Well, we'll see you next time on the Second Call Defense podcast. Be safe.